There's a quorum. With that, Jenna, could you call the roll, please?
Cummings. Chambliss.
Here.
Ferguson. Fredson. Gonzalez.
Here.
Sterner. Zarin. And Barber.
Here. With that, a quorum being present, I call to order the meeting of the Metropolitan Council Transportation Committee for January 11, 2021. Our first order of business is approval of the agenda. If there are no objections to the agenda, we can proceed to the minutes. All right. Seeing none, the agenda is approved, and we are looking for approval of the minutes for the December 14th, 2020 meeting. Did anyone have any changes or additions? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve by Chambliss.
Moved by Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Seconded by Gonzalez. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Jenna, could you call the roll, please?
Cummings. Chambliss.
Aye.
Ferguson. Fredson. Gonzalez.
Aye.
Sterner. Zarin.
Aye.
And Barbara, aye.
Oh, sorry, Barber.
No problem.
Did I?
None of that. With that, the minutes are approved. So next we are going to move on to our TAC report. I don't know that we have a TAC report. I don't see David Fenley on. If we see him pop on later, we will step back to that. Next, we'll move on to MTS Director Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
A couple updates tonight. Tonight, you will be on the agenda approving or asked to concur with the TAB recommendation to award over $214 million in federal funds for transportation projects across the region. One of the big steps in the allocation of investment in transportation that this council and TAB work on together. The federal funds themselves are provided to our region as part of a distribution to large MPOs across the country. With the latest round of COVID relief, our region will also receive some additional federal funds for transportation projects. We are anticipating over $50 million in new federal funds that will be allocated to our region for TAB and the council to distribute, similar to what you'll be approving tonight or concurring with tonight. These new funds are in addition to the transit funding that our council will be receiving that you'll hear about. In the first COVID relief package last spring, there were transit operating funds, but no infrastructure funds like this 50 million. So there's definitely good news. At this point, there's still a lot of details we don't know about, but it will be make some much needed investment in transportation projects in our region. So we're looking forward to working on that this year. As a COVID update, we are working closely with Metro Transit on the coordination of vaccine for public transit workers, hopefully starting as soon as later this month. In our contracted service group that MTS is responsible for and the suburban transit providers, there are nearly 2,000 employees of contractors that will qualify to receive a vaccine as part of the Group 1B rollout. So we are still waiting on the details on the number of vaccines that we'll have available, when we'll be able to distribute, and how we're going to work on the logistics. But definitely excited to move forward with that, and it's a large undertaking that should be starting soon. We're continuing also to do a lot of testing. We are doing what we're calling saturation testing of our contractors, trying to get as many tested in a short period of time to see what our level of community spread is among our contractors. We started that last week. They're doing it on site at the contractor sites, and we're continuing that through this week. We're still waiting for several results, but we did detect some positive tests in the past few days, and that is exactly what we're trying to find is among the asymptomatics. And so we're doing this mass testing across our contractors. Last week in total, we had 9 positive tests COVID among our contracting employees. Lastly, premium on demand for Metro Mobility. The council has heard, this committee has heard updates on that with our plan to invest in both Lyft and taxi services so Metro Mobility customers can have same day on demand service using their phone for booking of trips. We're officially beginning the taxi rollout with testing starting this week with a small select group of Metro Mobility customers who helped with the selection and design of the system. We're not quite ready to start the Lyft service, but we won't hold back the taxi service if it's ready and with this testing. So that's good news for Metro Mobility customers as they begin to ramp up their use of travel after they get their vaccines. That will have these new services available to them. That, Madam Chair, it concludes my remarks. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Thompson. Are there any questions from council members? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to General Manager Koistra.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
First, I'll talk a little bit about the COVID cases. We've had a total of 348 employees diagnosed with COVID from March through yesterday, and that figure includes 31 new cases since this committee met last on December 14th through yesterday. Thankfully, we now have half as many cases in December as we experienced in November. December had 60 cases total, with November about 120. Of course, both months were significantly higher than what we were experiencing in the summer. And our cases aligned pretty closely with what the rise and fall in state cases were showing. Currently, we're not experiencing any operational impacts due to employees having COVID or needing to quarantine. With respect to vaccinations, the next phases of vaccine distribution will begin in early February. We're working with the Minnesota Department of Health, who is determining which frontline workers will be included in a three-phase distribution plan. The council's advocating that transit, wastewater, and Metro HRA frontline staff be included in the second phase, and distributions as we understand, distribution plans from the Minnesota Department of Health, which should be available soon. At this time, the vaccine will not be required as a condition of employment, but of course, we are highly encouraging people to receive the vaccine and stressing the importance of receiving the vaccine for purposes of being in public-facing positions and for the protection of the people that they work with, in addition to themselves. With respect to ridership has been remaining fairly steady. It's still down over 60% compared to pre-pandemic levels. From December 28th to January 3rd, the total system ridership was down 62%. Bus was down 62%. Blue Line LRT was down 65%. Green Line was down 61%, and North Star was down 96%. And I'll just say again that North Star experience is not that different than the experience of commuter and express routes that were in the bus category. The bus category, there's a lot of variation in the bus category with much more ridership in the local services than there are in the express routes, and I believe the ABRT lines are performing best of all. So there's a lot of variation across the bus category. We are continuing our efforts to improve mask compliance. Our police department and marketing department are trying to work together to improve compliance. On light rail, we're observing over 75% compliance during the last week of December. I think the last report I had was 77% of compliance. Marketing continues to push the mask compliance message via onboard audio and scrolling messages and static signage and other social media posts. Last week, we posted a video on the Metro Transit blog, Riders Almanac, that featured operators from Metro Transit and other transit agencies across the United States to help personalize the message of why wearing masks or on transit is so important. We received word this morning on our federal relief stimulus funds. we had actually the information came out mid-morning, and we had our number confirmed just before noon today. The COVID bill signed into law in late December includes $14 billion for transit nationwide. Today, FDA's released allocation shows that our region is set to receive 185.9 million, and we're, of course, grateful for the significant infusion of funds. Please note that this again is one-time money. It doesn't solve our long-term structural deficit, but again, we are grateful because we're facing significant challenges in funding our operations and capital maintenance needs across our system, including bus and rail, as well as metro mobility. We just received this information today, as I said, and we're still in the process of working with the governor's office on his budget recommendations. So I expect that we'll have more information in the coming weeks about how this regional total will be allocated to address our significant capital and operating funding needs across the system. And then finally, Madam Chair, on a non-COVID update, all 91 light rail vehicles now have the new real-time cameras installed and operating. As I've talked with this committee about before, real-time video capability on our trains is one tool we are using to increase our presence on vehicles. These cameras enable us to more effectively monitor and respond to conditions on our vehicles, and I want to acknowledge and thank all the great work by rail staff to get those cameras installed and running. So with that, Madam Chair, I'm open to questions or, of course, comments.
Thank you, General Manager. Questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Chambliss.
Thanks for the updates, Mr. Thompson and Koistra. It's good to hear that we have the real-time cameras installed on the light rail trains now. It's very helpful for safety and tracking what's going on. And I'm looking forward to seeing how well that works afterwards.
Thank you. Additional questions or comments? I just have one question, if there's nothing else from council members. Are we doing any advertising or putting information out on the trains that say that the cameras are real time and live so that the public knows?
Madam Chair, that's a great question. In fact, just started that conversation today with operations about how we best communicate that. I mean, we have to certainly have some internal communications that we have to do with respect to the completion of the work, but we're also starting to talk about how we might represent this to our public. The responses can go either way. Cameras, there's always opinions on cameras, but they're located wherever we are, and whether we're shopping or whether we're at a street corner or whatever. And we think it's important to get communication on this. I'll mention with respect to Council Member Chambliss's comments that I've seen some of the video off of the real-time cameras, and it was related to someone we just recently apprehended for a shooting on our system. And it is so clear, it is so beneficial to really following up on some of the crime and situations and livability situations that we're having on our system. So it's a real bonus to both us as operators and to our riders as customers. So we'll let you. I'll get back to you with respect to the rollout of the communication piece that we've just started talking about.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll give a last call of any questions or comments from council members. All right, thank you both, Wes and Nick. Then we're on to our first order of business, which is the consent agenda. There are 2 items on consent. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent items.
Chair Barbara, this is Sterner, and I would motion to approve the consent agenda.
Great, moved by Sterner. Is there a second?
Second by.
It's seconded by Zarin. I think you were the first one there. And is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Jenna, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner, Zirin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the consent items are passed. Next, we're on to business item 2021-10, which is review of the Metropolitan Airports Commission 2021 to 2027 Capital Improvement Program. And I believe we have Russ Owens here.
I'm here.
Welcome.
Can you see me? Can you hear me?
Can hear? Yep, can both.
Great. Thank you, Madam Chair and Transportation Committee members. My name is Russ Owen. I'm a senior planner with under MTS, and this is the annual review of the MAC Capital Improvement Program. MAC owns and operates 7 of the 9 airports in the region that are part of the Regional Aviation System Plan. The Regional Aviation System Plan is part of the Transportation Policy Plan, and under state law, the Met Council is required to review the Metropolitan Airports Commission's CIP on an annual basis to make sure the policies conform to the Regional Aviation System Plan, the TPP, as well as if there are any projects that meet a certain dollar threshold or a significant effects criteria like a new airport, longer runways, runway extensions, land acquisitions, those types of criteria, that the Met Council would then also approve those projects in the CIP. There are no projects like that in the CIP this year. I don't know. A couple years ago, the MAC did approve, or the council did approve the Lake Elmo project that's happening, and also the Crystal Airport project that's happening. This year, there are no projects, so there's about 6 projects in the CIP that are that meet the dollar threshold, but don't meet the significant effects criteria. Review has been, this MAC CIP review has been reviewed by TAC as well as TAB, and at the next council meeting, which is I believe the 27th of January, we will have Executive Director Ricks, the MAC CEO, MAC Executive Director. He will be at that meeting to provide an overview and an update of what's happening at MSP and at the MAC and industry trends over the next year and what he foresees happening in the next year. So with that, I can answer any questions. We do have Bridget Reef, who is here. She's the Vice President of Planning, Development, and Environment, if you have any specific questions about the CIP. But the review, the business item, determined that the MAC had an adequate public participation process. They held a public hearing. There are no projects that need approval, and all the comments we reviewed and comment on all the projects, and they're consistent with the TPP, including planning and environmental concerns. So with that, I can stand for any questions.
Thank you, Russ. Are there any questions from council members? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2021-10.
Chambliss makes a motion to approve.
Moved by Chambliss. Is there a second?
Sterner seconds.
Seconded by Zerner. Is there any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none. Jenna, could you call the roll?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner.
Aye.
Thank you. Zirin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. Thank you very much, Russ, and thank you, Bridget, also for joining us today. And we'll look forward to seeing you at our council meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we are moving on to business item number 2020-16, a same week item. It's Transit Link Anoka Hennepin contract, and we have Sheila Williams. Welcome.
Well, good afternoon, Madam Chair. My name is Sheila Williams. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Sheila Williams, and I'm the project administrator for MTS's contracted transit services. And I'm here to present business item 2021-016 for the Hennepin County contract award. Can you see me? I have my camera on. You can see me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. So the action before you this afternoon is to award contracts for transit links Anoka and Northwest Ramsey County and Hennepin County service areas. MTS combined those service areas into a single procurement to increase the size of the procurement, to improve the proposal quality and price, and to ensure quality service delivery over the long term. And I'd also like to point out that this procurement was a joint effort between the council and Anoka County. And so Anoka County Office of Transit will administer the service for the Anoka County Ramsey service area, overseeing all of the day-to-day operations of that service. And so the county will hold the service contract and will fund all administrative expenses related to overseeing that service. And the council will finance operations through an intergovernmental agreement with the county. The council will directly contract the Hennepin County's portion of the service. Just to give you a little more information about the proposals and the evaluation process, a request for proposals was released on September 10th of 2020. There were 9 registered plan holders, meaning 9 entities downloaded the RFP package from our website. 4 proposals were received and evaluated by a 5-member panel with representation from MTS, or Metropolitan Transportation Services, Anoka and Scott counties, and MnDOT. All proposals were evaluated using 4 criteria: the quality of each proposal, the proposer qualifications, the experience and compliance with the RFP, and finally the proposed price. Transit team submitted the proposal with the highest rated technical score and the lowest overall cost over the term. And based on that, the evaluation panel reached consensus that the proposal submitted by transit team represents the best overall value to provide dial-a-ride transportation services for the 2 service areas. And therefore, the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute contracts with Anoka County and Transit Team, Inc. to provide transit-linked dial-a-ride services for a total procurement value of not to exceed $16,522,046 over the term of 5 years. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm open for questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions from council members?
See. Councilmember Zarin makes the motion.
Thank you. Moved by Councilmember Zarin. Is there a second?
Second by Chambliss.
Seconded by Chambliss. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, Jenna, would you call the roll, please?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. Very good. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you.
Next, we're on to business item 2021-12, which is the 2020 Regional Solicitation Funding Decision. And we must have Steve Peterson here to present.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair and members. As Director Thompson alluded to at the outset here, it's kind of a celebratory meeting here for the regional solicitation, which Councilmember Barber and others have been working on over the past 2 years. And at the next slide here, please, Greg. Some of these photos are from pre-COVID, but wanted to show us some of the discussion and scoring committees on this topic and all the hard work that went into it. But today we're asking for council's concurrence on the project list. The next 2 items are really tied together, the regional solicitation and the HSIP. They're separate action items, but really we'll talk about both of them here in today's presentation. Next slide, please. We have a total of 56 projects, and you can figure out what those are. In fact, there's quite a few attachments that we put here today. One of them being all the projects by council districts. So it's good to know some of these great projects that are going to be coming up in 24 and 25. It's very exciting for our local agencies that have won, in some cases, several millions of dollars to go towards some projects that are really important to them. So we'll highlight a few of those. In fact, 6 of those here today through the presentation, but there's 56 total. Next slide, please. One thing that we like to draw or go back to is the connection to the Thrive Outcomes and TPP goals that flows through all the way through our scoring criteria and measures. And so the projects that are selected here, all of them can tie back to the Thrive Outcomes. Next slide, please. Again, here are the 11 or so application categories that our local communities apply for. Next slide. And just to give you a flavor for how many people scored these projects, we had 69 people, mostly technical experts from agencies across the region that were involved with the scoring. So it's a very kind of slow, deliberate process, lots of transparency, and our local agencies take the scoring very seriously. So just wanted to highlight that. Next slide. Again, of the 56 projects, only was about 40% of the total, 41% of the total projects submitted. So even in this time with some local budget constraints and COVID, the unmet need even during this time was really great. And you can see in the last bullet point there, actually 419 million was requested overall, and we've funded just under half of that. So the demand for these locally initiated projects remains high. Next slide, please. Here's the geographic spread of where those projects are located, and this was a key topic for our Transportation Advisory Board tab as far as what they ended up approving in the end. So out of those 56 projects, there was investment made in all 7 counties, including 36 different cities or townships. Next slide, please. And we'll just highlight a few projects here. First on the roadway side. We did want to note that most of, if not all of the roadway projects really have a lot of multimodal investment. They include trails, sidewalks, in some cases pedestrian underpasses under the road. And so that's really valued by our scoring system. And those are the types of projects that in the end we're funding here through the solicitation. So next slide. Two to highlight on the roadway side. One is scored very high in the equity area. Our equity measure, probably the best scoring project on that front was a Franklin Avenue reconstruction in Minneapolis. Well, they'll likely be removing some of the lanes, adding an on-street bike lane, better sidewalks, etc. That was one project. Next slide. Just east of our Robert Street location, project that you heard about, and also the state legislature funded with the bonding bill this past fall. In the magnitude of over $50 million. $7 million came from the tab for the city of St. Paul to reconstruct the Kellogg Bridge as it goes over 94. Next slide, please. On the transit and TDM side, also a good slate of projects that we want to highlight. Next slide. The first of which, a Burnsville bus garage submitted by MVTA. They also won a FTA competitive grant for a stage of this project, but will replace a much needed replacement of their facility and expansion of it for MVTA. Next slide. And one thing that was new this year was related to arterial BRT, and $25 million was set aside for Metro Transit to fund what in this case will be the F line. We don't know what the F line is, of course, and you'll be involved with that process. But this was a big change in this solicitation cycle, was to recognize the importance of ABRT in our regional system and to set aside some money. So TAB will officially vote on this money in the April timeframe. And obviously a lot of work between now and there to select what that project will be. Next slide. On the bike ped side, people certainly saw the importance of these types of investments in our region during the COVID time, and we ended up funding more higher amount of bike ped projects than we ever have in the regional association. We funded all of the pedestrian projects that were submitted and all of the safe routes to school projects, as well as 11 multi-use trail non-street bicycle facilities. So to highlight two of those, next slide, please. One of these was in downtown Chaska. They're going to be rebuilding Highway 41 as it goes through downtown Chaska. Part of that investment is much greater streetscaping and sidewalks for all the downtown businesses. So this should be a great project. Next slide. Here, or in Anoka County, the city of Coon Rapids submitted in this case, a pedestrian overpass for the Coon Creek Regional Trail to go over Coon Rapids Boulevard. So the TAB approved putting in $2.4 million of a nearly $5 million project. Next slide. So the next action item relates to HSIP, is the acronym Highway Safety Improvement Program. This year, another 26 projects, and those are indicated on the maps as well that you'll have by council district. The theme of that, a lot of roundabout projects were submitted. In fact, 8 of those. There was also a higher emphasis placed on pedestrian safety, both in HSIP and the regional solicitation. Next slide, please. So here's the geographic spread of those across the region. Next slide. So to come back to today's action, again, we're requesting council concurrence on the package of projects for both the regional solicitation and HSIP, and to put these projects into the draft TIP, Transportation Improvement Program. You'll see the draft TIP come before you for approval here, not till next fall with these projects, but asking for concurrence and permission to put those into the TIP. Next slide, please. So again, here's the TIP timeline, and 2 years out is the next regional solicitation, but we are already doing work to get ready for the 2022 regional solicitation. And believe it or not, those projects are already out in 2026 and 2027, but we're working hard on what those projects will be. So back to you, Madam Chair. Again, thank you for all the work that you did. A lot of meetings, 8 or so meetings 2 summers ago here to make this happen. And I'll take any questions the committee has.
Thank you very much, Steve. Yeah, it's been quite the process, and it reflects a lot of hard work by a lot of people. So it's very much appreciated. Are there any questions or comments from council members? Councilmember Chambliss.
I just wanted to ditto what Chair Barber said. Thanks to the TAB members and all the local folks for doing the assessment. The demand for these projects based on our presentation is very high. And it's a lot of work across a lot of different categories, from safety, bikes and trails, etc. It's really exciting to be able to be a part of approving this project. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in 2022.
Thank you, council member. Additional questions or comments from council members? I just want to say, actually, just expand a couple of quick words. Really, a lot of thanks to our staff, to all the TAB members, to all of the people behind the scenes who do all the hard work of the scoring and all of that, who probably don't get as much recognition all the time as they do. But this is a big effort that a lot of people work on, and obviously it is hugely impactful for our region. So really a big thanks to all who have been involved with the process. So with that, I would entertain a motion to approve business item 2021-12.
Chair Barbara, this is Sterner. I would proudly approve make a motion to approve it.
All right, moved by Sterner. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Seconded by Gonzalez. Is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Jenna, would you call the roll?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. That the motion carries. Thank you very much, Steve.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. We're on to our next business item. which also Steve, 2021-13. It's the 2020 HSIP solicitation funding decision.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. And you saw the slides on this in the previous presentation. So unless people have any questions, again, it's 26 projects focused intently on reducing fatal and serious injury crashes on our system, a mix of both roadway and bike ped-related improvements. And with that, I think I'll just turn it back to you, Madam Chair.
Perfect. Are there any additional questions from council members? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2021-13.
Chambliss makes a motion to approve.
It's moved by Chambliss. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Second by Gonzalez. Is there any other discussion? Hearing and seeing none, Jenna, could you call the roll?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zarin. Zarin.
Aye.
Thanks. Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. All right. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Next, we're on to business item 2021-6. It is Inver Grove Heights surplus land sale, and we have Claudius Toussaint here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and council members. My name is Claudius Toussaint with Metro Transit Office of Engineering and Facilities. This business item is to request that the council authorize the regional administrator to award and execute a quitclaim deed with 2JM Limited in the amount of $650,000 for a surplus parcel of land. In 1997, council purchased a 1.7-acre parcel of land to construct a transit center in the city of Inver Grove Heights. However, with the establishment of light rail transit service along Hiawatha and the opening of park and ride facilities associated with the LRT at Fort Snelling, a transit center in Inver Grove Heights is now no longer warranted and not likely to be viable in the foreseeable future. And so in June of 2019, for business item 2019-124, Council declared the parcel as surplus and authorized its disposition. An invitation for bids was issued seeking prospective purchasers in an amount requested bid of no less than the appraised value of $630,000. Staff has determined that 2JM's bid of $650,000 is fair and reasonable and in the best interest of the council. With this, Madam Chair, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Claudius. Are there questions from council members? All right, seeing and hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2021-6.
Sterner would make a motion to approve the item.
All right, moved by Sterner. Is there a second?
Second by Gonzalez.
Second by Gonzalez. Is there any other discussion? Councilmember Chambliss.
Yeah, so I'm looking at the picture of the parcel, and it looks like it's adjacent to parking lot. I'm just curious. I see also a building kind of in the middle of that parking lot. What is that building representing?
Madam Chair, council members, adjacent to the proposed or the subject parcel is I think it's a Chevy dealership.
Oh.
There are a number of dealerships surrounding that parcel of land.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Are there any other questions from council members? Any other discussion? All right. So we have a motion and a second. Jenna, if there's no other discussion, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. All right. Thank you very much, Claudius.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next, we're on to business item 2021-7, which is 2020 bus passenger waiting shelters. And we have Paul Lamb here, I believe. Hi, Paul.
Good afternoon, Chair, committee members. My name is Paul Lamb. I'm a project manager in the engineering facilities group with Claudius Tussaud over at Metro Transit. And I'm here to present on this item 2021-7, where we're asking the council to authorize award and execution of a contract with Nebraska International in the amount not to exceed $523,700. Every year, Metro Transit Engineering Facilities places new shelters out in the street, either to repair old or damaged shelters or to install shelters at high ridership bus stops that haven't had them before. We've had, every couple of years, we have a contract to procure or to get shelters. The existing contract that we had expired, so we needed to solicit bids or bids to get a new contract. This procurement would allow us to buy up to 120 shelters at the quoted costs in 2021 for installation over this year and next year. And then it also has options to allow us to get more shelters at those unit costs for the following 2 years. And as I mentioned, these shelters would be for both new installations at high ridership stops that don't have shelters now, or replacing old or damaged shelters that are currently in our system. This was solicited in October of 2020. There were 14 plan holders, and we received 3 bids in December. The bids range from $523,000 to $1,159,000. Brasco International was a low bidder, and this item in the proposed action is to authorize the award and execution of contract 20P061 to Brasco International and the amount of $523,000 and $700. With that, Chair and committee members, I'll stand for any questions.
Thank you. Are there questions from council members? Councilmember Chambliss.
Yes, before the pandemic, I used the bus shelters and the bus system regularly. So I really appreciate the Better Bus Stop program. When it's raining, when it's windy, when it's cold in Minnesota, it really means a lot. I know that we can't put heat in all of the shelters because of the way they're configured and the cost to add heat where it wasn't initially there. But I'm glad that we're taking a look at this. I'm wondering how, I know with pandemic, we're getting behind in a lot of things, but in the recent past, how well were we keeping up with the need in terms of places where there were high ridership or damaged shelters?
Chair and Councilmember Chambliss, this year we installed an additional 15 shelters at high ridership stops that did not have shelters before, and that got us close to the Better Bus Stops program goal of $150,000 or 150 shelters. Sorry. That being said, we do continue to prioritize annually the shelters that we have that meet our ridership criteria for a shelter of 30 boardings a day or above. I'll have to look back at the numbers, but I think beyond that goal of the Better Bus Stops program of 150 shelters, there are a number of additional shelters that we do would qualify for a number of stops that would qualify for shelters. We're trying to prioritize those based on doing the higher number of boarding stops first and working down that list down to the kind of base criteria of 30 boardings a day. But I can get back with those exact numbers with the council.
Councilmember Chambliss.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lamb, for that update. I'm curious, do you have a criteria for how far away other shelters are? I know sometimes, if there's not a shelter where you get off and there's a shelter within, 2 or 3 blocks, then that's where you're going to go. So do we look at the spacing of the shelters as well?
Chair and council member, we have started looking at spacing of shelters over the last couple of years. I guess I'd say there are two things. One is in trying to distribute and use the resources that we are doing well. We are trying not to put shelters at consecutive stops unless they're very high ridership stops, like in the downtown areas. And then we're also working with the Metro Transit Service Development Department on some of apologize. My audio seems to keep kicking out. But we are coordinating with them going forward. I think they have a long-term program looking at high ridership routes that are not pegged to be BRT routes. So we're trying to coordinate with them on as they're looking at spacing bus stops, trying to get more facilities, shelter facilities, and at higher ridership stops on those routes.
Jenna, are we back? Well, I was talking.
It still keeps going out on me though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay. We have one business item left. We're almost done.
Only one.
I guess we got to vote on that last one. Yeah. We're giving people a couple of minutes to come back in.
Okay.
Yeah. Deb, I've got our network specialist checking up to see what's going on. Hopefully we can figure out.
Should we take our video off or not? Is that impeding anything?
I don't know that that's having any effect. I mean, it won't hurt any, but I don't think it's originating from there. But we can try it just with the one more business item. Maybe we can get through it.
We'll see how fast I can talk. You've been listening to me for a long time. You know I can go at a pretty good clip. All right.
Looks like Zaren's not back on yet.
Right.
Maybe
Jenna, let's give people a couple more minutes and then do a roll call just so we can test everybody's audio.
Okay, sounds good.
All right, so everyone, we're going to do a quick roll call just because it seems to be a bigger audio problem than anything. So just so we can make sure we've got enough people back to finish our last couple of items. So Jenna, could you call the roll?
Chambliss,
Here.
Cummings, Ferguson, Fredson, Gonzalez,
Here.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zirin,
Present.
Barber.
Here. All right, we've got enough to finish. Nick said he thought it was a rule that we can't finish before 5 o'clock, so that was the problem. So, because we were on a pretty good track there. All right, so we were on business item 2021-7, which is the 2020 bus passenger waiting shelters. I believe we were going through questions. Did anyone have any additional questions for Paul? No. Okay. Jenna, can you remind me if we had taken a motion or not yet?
We do not have a motion or a second.
Okay. All right, so I'd entertain a motion to approve business item 2020-7.
Chambliss makes a motion to approve.
Great, moved by Shion. Second, and any other discussion? Hearing none. Jenna, can you call the roll, please?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zirin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye, motion carries. We're on to business item number 2020-8, and thank you, Paul, sorry, and sorry for the craziness. On business 2021-8, which is Metro Mobile or Transit Mobile Application. I believe we have Bruce Howard.
Actually, Madam Chair, I'm going to turn this over to Adam Mell. Adam's a Senior Market Development Specialist, and hopefully he's on here and he can present this item.
Okay. All right. Welcome, Adam.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Council members, I did make it back on. So thank you very much. So real quick, just I'm going to give a 30-second history of our mobile app just to kind of give everyone a baseline. Metro Transit has been offering ticket sales via a mobile app since 2016. We signed a contract in late 2015 with a company at the time named Globe Sherpa, who was one of the first people to get mobile tickets out in the transit world. They became Ride Scout through a merger, then were purchased by a large automotive conglomerate and became Movil, and recently have become owned by another company called Interactive Mapping. We've been working with them for the last, 5 years plus in terms of selling tickets. At our peak before COVID started, we were selling around $4 million in tickets per year. It's been a great tool for our regular riders, our special event riders, visitors from out of town, the Super Bowl being a really great example of that, as well as our state fair being another big piece where we touched a lot of people who weren't necessarily regular riders as well. Earlier this year, we decided to go out for RFP to see what is in the market. In the last 6+ years, the market has changed quite a bit, and we felt it best to explore options to best see what's out there and serve our customers in the 7-county metro area. In this business item, the proposed action is that the council authorizes us to negotiate and execute a contract with Token Transit to develop and host the Metro Transit application for a total procurement to not exceed $912,000 over a term of 5 years. That number is partially an estimate based on ticket sales, based on that $4.2 million in sales over the last year, and then factoring in, of course, as we noted at the beginning of the meeting, sales being down, or excuse me, ridership being down, which would affect sales significantly in the next few years. But that would include both a $232,000 fixed cost, including hosting fees and development costs, plus 8% commission on ticket sales. As I noted, Metro Transit first started working with its app developer in 2015. We've grown since then. And with this next phase of the mobile app, we're really looking to take this new vendor and move to a new phase where we're looking towards a more regionally focused mobile app. Looking at selling tickets that, if you're familiar with the current mobile ticket, it looks very Metro Transit branded. It has our vehicles with our liveries on them. It's the Metro Transit app, and the ticket looks like a Metro Transit app, even though it's a regional ticket that is used across providers, including the suburban providers. What we're looking to do here is move to something that's more brand neutral, much like our go-to card, so that it is something that's more equitable to the rest of the partners in the region, and it looks more regional and not Metro Transit specific. Another option we're looking to explore is selling our tickets through third-party apps. This would include both the the suburban providers and their own apps, as well as looking at selling tickets in transit and transportation aggregators like the Transit app, Google Maps, ride-hailing services, and more. This is something that we see the industry going to, and would be a really exciting part about this next phase in the mobile app. This app will replace the current mobile app while continuing to provide the current features that we see on the app, including ticket buying, links to our tools, text for safety, account management, but it will also be positioned to expand and add features to meet the growing needs of transit customers and our region. The RFP was issued on August 7th, 2020. Pre-proposal meeting was hosted to discuss the specifications and the requirements with potential submitters. There were 29 registered plan holders for that. 29 registered plan holders, 9 holders identified as minority, women, or small or disadvantaged business enterprises, with submitting 2 proposals. In total, the council received 12 proposals to be evaluated for consideration. The evaluation panel utilized expertise from a wide range of disciplines, including technical advisors and voting members from various parts of the council and inside Metro Transit, as well as someone from the Transit Accessibility Advisory Committee and suburban transit providers as well, putting their feedback in on the proposals to help us select one that met everyone's needs. The criteria that was used in evaluation for the proposals was quality, proposer qualifications, experience, and price, and the ability to meet our current and future needs. Evaluation considered the initial proposal and demonstration rating, the demonstration rating, and determined that Token Transit is the most advantageous for us, giving its offering in terms of services as well as being competitively priced. They offered a solution to transition customers from the old app to the new app, and really are very heavily focused on integration with those shared mobility providers, those trip aggregators, really looking towards the future of people who move in a multimodal way throughout our region and other regions. That was a really strong part.
WebEx Assistant is enabled to save audio highlights.
OEO also was on the panel as well and reviewed the project, but did not assign an underutilized, MCUB goal for this project. However, through the Thrive lens, we do feel that this furthers the Thrive outcomes of equity, livability, and sustainability in the region. It really improves access to those who are underbanked by expanding solutions for customers who don't have, a relationship with a bank or a credit card, the ability to buy tickets and still utilize this app in a way that I think is a positive move for the mobile app. It also helps, again, with those sustainability and livability goals by giving folks access to potential ecosystems of transportation that allow them to live more car-free. Being on places where they have easy access in a single app that may be Metro Transit's app, or it may not be. It may be the Transit app or possibly the Lyft app or what have you. Any of these transportation apps that are putting multiple modes together when we have that ability to sell our ticket in third-party apps. Council received a CMAQ grant that covers the majority of the app development costs and hosting fees over the contract period. There's also some IS and marketing funds that will be going into this, and of course, the commission that comes from each ticket sales. There is no known opposition to this project. And with that, I would open for questions.
Are there any questions from council members? All right, so the proposed action is that the Metropolitan Council authorize the regional administrator to negotiate and execute a contract with Token Transit Incorporated to develop and host a Metro Transit mobile application for the total procurement value not to exceed $912,000 over a term of 5 years. I would entertain a motion to approve the business item.
Zarin motions.
Moved by Zarin. Is there a second?
Sterner seconds.
Seconded by Sterner. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none. Jenna, could you call the roll, please?
Chambliss,
Aye.
Cummings, Ferguson,
Aye.
Fredson, Gonzalez,
Aye.
Sterner,
Aye.
Zarin,
Aye.
Barber.
Aye. With that, the motion carries. Thank you, Adam. And with that, that concludes our business for tonight. Thank you. I think that items 1 through 4, so the max CIP, the same week item, the regional solicitation, and the ASIP would go non-consent, and consent items could be 5, 6, and 7, unless I hear anything from anyone else.
Nope.
All right, sounds good. That will be our plan. We don't have any information items on the agenda, so unless I hear objection, we can be adjourned. All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for hanging